Hi there, I'm Nick Munson, Communications Specialist here at Marymount University, and you are watching Faculty in Focus, a new video series that highlights the teaching, research, and service of our dedicated faculty members at Marymount. And in this episode, I have the pleasure of chatting with Dr. Elizabeth Langran, Professor of Education here at Marymount, for a discussion on how we are preparing our future educators to teach with technology. Thanks so much for joining us on this program today.
Oh, my pleasure.
So to start off, I'd love to hear more about your background, what you're passionate about, and how you came to Marymount.
Well, I started off as a high school teacher before the World Wide Web was even around. So I certainly
A whole different world.
It was not teaching with technology at all. I had an overhead projector, and that was about it.
Chalkboards, maybe.
Yes, chalkboards, definitely. That was in 1992. So I had taught in a few different places, including in the Peace Corps for 2 years.
Nice.
I came back to the U.S. in 1998 and was placed at a school that had a laptop program. So not a lot of schools in 1998 had laptop programs.
It's probably a very unique thing.
It was, yeah, one-to-one, where every middle school kid had their own laptop. All the teachers had laptops, and they said, okay, go teach with these. So I saw a lot of problems with technology.
Probably the guinea pigs at that point.
Exactly.
Like, trying to figure out how it works.
We made all the classic mistakes you could make, but I saw that this is coming clearly, and I got really interested in it. And when I was teaching overseas at the American School in Switzerland, I ended up being the technology coordinator simply because I had an interest in it, and I was already a teacher there. And decided to go even further and get my doctorate in instructional technology at UVA. So that's how I got into this field, and I'm certainly very passionate about it. Here at Marymount, I don't just teach educational technology, but I have to say that's one of my favorite things to do is to help teachers to figure out how to use technology in their classroom.
Definitely very interesting stuff. So you're teaching educational technology courses here. Can you tell me a little bit about who is in those classes and what types of things that you do in those classes to teach students how to take control of that technology for good?
Sure. We have both undergraduate and graduate educational technology courses here, so I teach both of those. And in those classes, we have people who are going to be elementary school teachers, secondary teachers, special education. So we have pretty wide variety. And of course, then we also have the education minor at the undergraduate level, and we have a non-licensure master's program in education. So not everybody's actually going to be a classroom teacher. So we have a pretty wide variety. So I try to find things that are applicable to all kinds of people. We do some media production. For example, we have them learn how to use Audacity to make a podcast, and they might use that as a way for students to create their own, where they can use that as an alternative assessment. They could create a podcast for parents. But in addition to media production, we also learn about a lot of the issues around technology in the classroom. For example, we just covered media literacy, cyberbullying, digital equity, things like that. So trying to figure out how you can use 3D printers in the classroom and things like that has been a lot of fun. But of course, it requires a lot of refreshing of the course all the time. So
things are always changing.
Things are always changing for sure.
So kind of piggybacking off of that, really, well, why is it important for future teachers to know the ins and outs of educational technology so that they can kind of stay ahead of the curve with those changes coming?
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you said ahead of the curve, too, because some of our teachers are going into technology-rich environments, and some of our teachers are not, but we still want them to be prepared for that. Right. So we try not to focus too much on a particular tool, but on how you might integrate this as a teaching technique. And so some of our teachers go into classrooms that have smart boards, and they need to know how to use those smart boards. And it's an expectation of the principals who are hiring them that these students will know how to use the tools. We try to help them. How would you manage an iPad cart, and what kinds of things could you do with a one-to-one classroom like that? So we are also driven a little bit by our accreditation, too. There's an expectation now that teachers will have technology skills when they enter the classroom. So that's a driver as well. Yeah,
very important. In the future, here at Marymount specifically, how are we going to continue to prepare the future teachers of America?
Well, as I mentioned, it's a constantly changing field. So I'm not sure what we'll be covering within the next even year or two. I've started introducing artificial intelligence in my classroom, and how do we manage that as part of the educational experience. One of the dreams I have is to work on developing a course that will help people to use a makerspace. So we do have a makerspace here on campus, and I've had a few preliminary discussions, but I haven't really had time to work on it yet to think about how can we get some funding to really create that as a teaching space and to help prepare some of our teachers, some of whom will be going in to run makerspaces. At the graduate level, we have a STEM certificate. We also have a master's in education that has a STEM concentration. And so we want to make sure that they're prepared to work in maker spaces and to be comfortable in running those spaces too. So that's kind of a little dream I have coming soon, I think.
Yeah. For you personally, are you involved or connected with any local or national educational technology organizations or initiatives?
Sure. At the national or international level, I'm actually the president-elect of my professional organization. That's the Society for Information Technology and Teacher Education. It's an organization I've been involved in for many years, and so I'm really excited to be working more in depth with that.
Yeah. Are you doing any research or publishing on the topic of educational technology?
Sure, always have something going, but right now I am collaborating with Dr. Janine DeWitt in our sociology department, and we are in the home stretch, I hope, of publishing a book with Paul Grave McMillan on place-based learning and mapping and using mobile devices as we learn about places. So that's been keeping us rather busy lately.
I'm sure.
We'll be very excited to have that come to a close.
I bet. I guess my last question here would be maybe what are you most excited about that's on the frontier of incorporating educational technology in classrooms, whether it be elementary or beyond?
Oh gosh, so many things, and there's a lot to get excited about, but there's also a lot to be nervous about too, because as I mentioned, artificial intelligence is certainly coming.
Virtual reality, perhaps.
For sure, yeah, and there's a lot of applications out there. We just need to figure out what's the best way and the safest way. We want to make sure that we're not just throwing these tools in to add on to the curriculum because they're fun, but we want to make sure we figure out how do we best make them into educational tools that these teachers can use. There's a lot of evidence that indicates technology expenditures for school districts largely are wasted because they're not necessarily vetted, they're not research-based, they don't take into account how teachers might use them in the classroom. So when we're talking about spending our money wisely, we want to make sure we do it in a way where our teachers are trained to use them, that it's research-based, which is hard with technology because technology is always changing. But we want to make sure that we're introducing the right tools.
All right. Great discussion on a very important topic. Dr. Langran, thanks so much for your time.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you, Nick.
That'll do it for this episode of Faculty in Focus. Thanks so much for watching.